What's up, guys? This is Santec IT Solutions. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to set up a single Cisco router, just some basic commands to help you break you into the command line interface. So I'm going to go right into the configuration, global configuration mode, conft for short, and I'm going to name my host name. So I'm changing the host name to Santec1, and this command here, the first one up, is called no IP domain lookup. What this does is it turns off automatic resolution of an unrecognized command to a local host name. So basically, when you make a typo error, if anyone's ever used a Cisco router, sometimes it tries to look up that word as a host name and resolve it to an IP. So in any lab environment, I turn this off right away because it is annoying and it basically will hang, and anytime you make a little mistake, sometimes it just tries to resolve it to an IP address. So I'm not using any DNS or anything like that. This is very simple, so I turn that off right away. My next command that I like to change on any router, regardless, is the logging synchronous command. And this basically will, this turns off, well, basically it disables any information items that are sent to the console from disrupting your command that you're trying to type. So you go into the line console 0, which is one of the primary ways of managing a Cisco router, and you go into that line mode, type in logging synchronous, and that will disable that feature. And also exec timeout 00. This sets an unlimited timeout. So basically your console session will never time out. And I like to set that up too on any real routers that I use in a lab environment, because it's inconvenient to have to keep going back in and logging back into the router. So I don't recommend it for production, but it's a great command to know for labs. Here's another very important command: clock time zone, and then you would set your time zone in the differential from the UMT time. So in this case, set that up, and you see this was one of our first information items, the so-called March 1st, so yada yada. These kind of things pop up as you're typing in your commands, and the logging synchronous will stop them from disrupting your typing and keep your line at the bottom. So now I'm doing a password set. This enables a enable password Cisco as a standard password, and enable secret is going to be the secret password, or the MD5 encrypted password, which is very recommended for any situation with a router for security. I'll be going into security in detail in another video, just router and switch security. So now we can check our configuration, and you see this line here, no service password encryption. This I'm going to show you what that means in a moment. That's our secret password, and it's already encrypted. It says enable secret 5, and then basically what happens, and now you can see in plain text enable password Cisco for our standard password. So I'm going to run a command that shows that will actually encrypt our standard password as well, and any other passwords that go into the router at this point that I configure, and it will encrypt them. It's not a strong encryption, but also take notice, I'm going to show you in a moment of the different Cisco encryption types, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. And it's also very important to know them for the CCNA exam. So I'm going to go back into configuration. You see I'm already in configuration mode, and I'm basically going to run the service password encryption command now. Let's see that. And when I put that in and I do a show run, I'm going to show you now the password we saw before. It says enable password 7, and now it changed the word Cisco to this new encrypted text. So that basically means any passwords in plain text that you can't view them when you're looking at configurations. But you see the password type 7, that is the higher the password number, the higher the type number, the weaker the encryption. So this is, that code could easily be cracked. You could run it into any password cracker, and there's plenty of them on the internet. You could put that in, and it will basically spit back out the password you put in. So that's why we have the secret password, and I'm going to demonstrate later what happens when you go to type that in. the standard, once you enable the secret password, the standard password is no longer valid anyway. So it's just best practice to type them all in and just get used to the commands, because you could be asked questions on them. So now I'm going to go into our line console mode and set passwords for each of our management connections, starting with the console connection itself. I'm going to put a password, and I'm just going to simply call it console. And now but more importantly, why I'm showing you this is the next command. Anytime you put a password, you have to put the word login afterwards, otherwise it won't actually check for the password and you still just get right in. So this is a very important thing to understand about Cisco routers. You could actually configure the password, save it, and if you don't type in the login command, it won't prompt you for the login credential, which is kind of interesting, but you'll find that a lot of things with Cisco routers are very interesting. So now I'm doing line VTY0 question mark to show you all the different line numbers available. I'm just going to do 0 through 4 and configure a password for VTY line 0 through 4. So I'm going to call this password telnet. The line VTY, this is only for your telnet and your secure shell connections, your SSH and your telnetting. So I'm going to go into more detail on these connection types in the security video that I'll be doing later on. And this is the auxiliary line. So this is usually a 56K backdoor connection, and I'm just going to give it the password backdoor to name it appropriately for that. And also typing in login. Just always remember that you need that and for your secure shell and telnet connections. So now you're going to see my show run. I'm showing the running configuration here, and I'm going to show you the new passwords. And so far all of our commands we put in: clock, time zone, no IP domain, the secret password, the standard password. Now we're going down to the line console. You're going to see I have the exec timeout in there, the logging synchronous command, as well as our passwords that we put in that are also weak level password. So that's why they always recommend using secure shell, because that is the only password that's going to have the MD5 encryption on it, and I'll show you all of that in, obviously, as I keep saying, in the security video that I'm going to do. But for now I just wanted to give you guys a feel for some basic commands and how you set up your router when you first get into it, and the different line modes, so to speak, are very important. From your user exec to your privilege exec, and down to global configuration, line configuration, interface configuration. So I'm saving my configuration now, and I want to just show you a couple of other quick things that might be helpful. And this is called the do show command. So you notice I'm in the global configuration mode, and if you want to run show commands from this level, from that global configuration level, you have to type the word do first. So I did a do show IP interface brief. It's kind of a shortcut, so you don't have to go back to your user exec mode, and this way you can get the same information. So if you see here, I'm now in exec mode, I'm running show IP. I just did that to show you that they give the same output, you get the same result. And as you can see right now, I'm going to configure, you can see all our interfaces are unassigned. So I'm going to just configure the fast Ethernet and the serial interface with some IP addresses just to show you that real quick. And I covered a couple of those same things in my last video, but just to show you again, you can see now it says config-if, and that means we're in interface mode. So you type in your IP address. But before I even do that, actually, I want to show you another command. You can use the description command, and here you can actually label your interfaces, which is extremely helpful, and I would recommend doing it. And this I'm going to just call it link to central office, as you see there. And now I'm going to add my IP address mask and turn on the interface. So it's IP address 192.168.10.1 with a standard class C mask. Hit enter and type in. This is serial interface, so I'm going to put in a clock rate to give you an idea. The clock rate command is very important, and so I put in 5600, which most serial links could be a 56 kbps connection. and then I put in I'm going to just do a interface fast Ethernet 00 interface, and the description here I'm just going to say IT LAN. So this would be the LAN to our IT department or something like that. And we're going to just put the IP address, and I'll use 192.168. I'll use a different subnet .20.1, and no shut. Now I didn't put any clock rate because that only applies to serial interfaces. Keep that in mind. And I'll go into further detail with those kind of things in a different video. But now I'm setting up a loopback interface. And these are virtual interfaces, so I'm giving it another description. Call it like accounting LAN or something like that. That sounds good. And you don't have to run a no shut on this because it doesn't require it. It's already active the second you give it an IP. So let's keep that in mind when working with loopbacks. It doesn't need to be turned on, so to speak. So I'm going to exit from interface mode back into global, and then I hit Control Z to go back to exec mode. And now I'm doing show IP interface brief, which is, get familiar with that command because you'll be using it a lot. And this is the serial interface, loopback interface. Everything has an IP now. Get familiar with how to read this output because this is one of your major troubleshooting tools that you can use. So I'm going to show you now another useful troubleshooting command, and just for general information on your serial links when you're working with those, and WAN link protocols, which I'll cover in another video as well. But you need to know the show controllers command, and this works for your serial interfaces. If you type in a specific interface, it'll give you the information just for that. If you just put show controllers, it will give you the information for all your serial interfaces. That's the DCE cable. This is the most important part right now for your CCNA, is to know the cable type, DCE, and also your clock rate. You'll find that information from this line. There is obviously, you can see a ton of information and from that, but for the beginning, those are your two major pieces of information. And you can run a show clock command, which will display the clock. As you can see here, I just have the Eastern time set up. The rest is not configured, but you can configure every detail of the clock if you need to, and I'll cover that in another video as well. And you have your show history command that we covered before, show flash, just to recap what we did in the last video. These are important basic commands: show history, show flash, and show version, which is very important. This is where you're going to, again, learn and be able to tell what operating system version you're using, and your configuration register is set and what mode that's in. And the show ARP command will give you the MAC address that belongs to a particular port. So in this case, we have one entry for our serial link port, or actually that's the LAN port, sorry. And now I'm just going to show protocols command, and right now there isn't anything really running except for just our basic connected routes that we have. So I didn't enable any real protocols, but I'm going to go into each protocol in other videos as well. And I'll go back to our start configuration just to show, recap what we did here. We have our secret password with the MD5 encryption, our standard password, and we have no IP domain lookup that we did. Our interfaces are not, I didn't save those yet, but you see they're not there because I didn't save them from our running configuration. So I'm going to do that now, and we can take a look at the quickly at the line configurations once I'm done saving and backing up the running config. So I'll do a show start again, and now we're going to see the changes. Here's our IP addresses with our description. You can see accounting LAN, the IT LAN, our serial interface a little further down here where we have the link to central office. And we'll go take a quick look again just to take a peek at the line information that we set up from before with the passwords. And now I'm going to just switch back to user mode, and that concludes our video. I just want to thank you guys for oh, one last thing. This is what happens when you once you've configured your password and you click enable. There you go, it has a blank cursor and you prompt, and you just start typing. No words or letters will appear. you just type in your password and boom, you're back into user exec. So that's a fun thing to practice. You should do that a couple of times just to get the hang of it. And thanks again for watching. And I hope this video is very helpful for your CCNA studies. Thank you.